when they're talking about racism, they talk about class, inequality, all these things. They may be problems. They may be things that we want to address in our country, but they are emotionally charged issues that they use to take you away from the simple desire to have your money and use your money to solidify their power. Tomorrow, next week, they are scheduled to start talking about this infrastructure bill and vote on this infrastructure bill and this, what they call this reconciliation bill, which is trillions of dollars. They say it's $3.5 trillion, but the Wall Street Journal calls it one of the greatest fiscal cons in history because it's a massive expansion of the welfare state. And the thing about the welfare state is once you expand it, you never get rid of it because each one of us is being bought off, right? They give you something for quote unquote free. There's a word that should be banned from every journalist's vocabulary, free. Nothing is free. The stars belong to everyone, you know? The moon belongs to everyone. Everything here on earth costs something. It costs work, it costs effort, it costs money. When they tell you that they are giving you something free, they have taken the money from someone else and given it to you. And I can understand why that's attractive to the you, but still it's not right. It's stealing when you do it by hand. It's stealing when you do it by government fiat. It doesn't mean that we don't all agree on certain small things that have to be taken care of, like law enforcement, fire departments. All of these things we understand have to be done together and we all chip in. Except we don't chip in anymore, really. It's just the rich who pay taxes. But still, we understand that this is something government can pay for. After they start rearranging who has the money, taking money away from one and giving it to somebody else, it's just plain stealing. And you know, it's interesting, and I have to give credit to Steven Crowder for this insight because he pointed it out to me once and I'd never thought of it before. You know, they always say, well, it's taking from the rich to give to the poor, like Robin Hood. And Crowder pointed out that Robin Hood was trying to stop inequality because of too much taxes. His enemy was the evil King John, who was taxing people too much. And so it's not the business that Robin Hood was out to get, it was the people who were lowering the taxes. So Joe Biden's, this is so bad, and the taxes that are going to follow, they're talking about taxing people, and they always talk about taxing the rich, but again, I can't explain this forever because I haven't got that much time, but when they tax the rich, the middle class pay the taxes. Socialism always ends with the poor and the powerful and the wealthy, right? Because the rich can get out of paying taxes. They don't even make income. They just borrow off their stocks, right? They borrow off their stocks. They pay it back when they've gotten more stocks. There's no profit anywhere along the way for the government to tax. What they end up taxing is wage earners, people who do well. And they say, well, they make so much money and people who make less money think that's a lot. But you're never rich if you're working for a living. You know, the people who are wealthy do not get taxed. So it's so bad, the numbers are so bad that Biden has to go out and tell people he's a capitalist. Here's that cut.
Big corporations and super wealthy have to start paying their fair share of taxes. It's long overdue. I'm not out to punish anyone. I'm a capitalist. If you can make $1 million or $1 billion, that's great. God bless you. All I'm asking is you pay your fair share.
I've always found it so creepy when he leans into the mic like that, but he's lying. He's not a capitalist. He is a venal houseplant who goes along with the tide of Democrat politics, and Democrat politics have been going to the left, to the far left. He is now a socialist, whether he likes it or not, whether he would self-identify as that or not, okay? The question with paying your fair share, I mean, I know it drives Shapiro crazy because Shapiro always says the rich pay all the taxes. And when you break it down, that's basically true. The rich pay all the taxes. Certainly the vast majority of it. The question is, what's your fair share of garbage? What's your fair share of programs that don't work except to get Democrats reelected? We are talking about the programs that are usually termed the Great Society, the increase, the vast increase in these kinds of programs that he's trying to do now, right, in the 60s. It was the Great Society. Now they're trying to double down on the Great Society. The problem with the Great Society is it has failed, and it has failed particularly in the lives of Black Americans. Jason Riley wrote about this in the Wall Street Journal this week, an excellent column from Riley, talking about the fact that the Great Society programs decimated Black lives and stalled Black progress. He says, okay, He says entitlement programs were dramatically expanded in the 1960s in the service of the war on poverty, yet poverty fell at a slower rate after the Great Society initiatives were implemented, and overall dependency on the government for food, shelter, and other basic necessities increased. Between 1940 and 1960, and this is important because people don't know this, between 1940 and 1960, before the Great Society, but basically after the war, the percentage of black families living in poverty declined by 40 points as blacks increased their years of education and migrated from poorer rural areas to more prosperous urban environs in the South and North. No welfare program has ever come close to replicating that rate of advancement, right? That's before the Great Society. What we experienced in the wake of the Great Society and society interventions was slower progress or outright retrogression. Black labor force participation rates fell. Black unemployment rates rose. And here's the big one. The black nuclear family disintegrated, as many people warned that it would, because they were basically subsidizing having children out of wedlock. Barry Latzer has noted that black male homicide rates had been falling in the 1940s by 18% and in the 1950s by 22%, yet this trend would reverse itself beginning in the late 1960s and to continue to worsen for nearly 3 decades, because when you decimate the family, you cause crime. It's that simple. The Democrats keep saying it's the systemic racism. It's the legacy of Jim Crow. It's them. It's the Great Society. But the problem with the Great Society is it funnels trillions of dollars into the government that the government can then dole out to whom it sees fit and buy votes. When they come into your town and they say, we're going to take care of you, we're going to give you this money. So the problem we have now, right, is that on the right, when we get a Ronald Reagan or a Donald Trump, and this is true of both of them, they cut regulations and they cut taxes, but they don't cut the Great Society. They don't cut the welfare program because everybody's getting a little piece of it and nobody wants to give it up. Remember, Donald Trump promised, I'm not going to cut, Social Security. I'm not going to cut any of your dole. I'm just going to cut taxes. So what happens? Our debt goes up, and our debt is now absolutely crushing, because after a while you run out of money. They now have a new idea, a new theory. I think it's called modern monetary theory. You can spend as much as you want and just print new money. Yeah. That theory is wrong. Okay, just on a guess. I'm just guessing. I'm no expert, but I'm guessing that theory is wrong. So both of the Republicans, our big Republican, real true conservative presidents, Trump and Reagan, cut taxes, but they didn't cut the Great Society because they didn't have the political will backing them. They didn't have the people backing them because everybody wants a piece of it. Then the Democrats come in and they do what they're doing now, which is they double down on the Great Society because that's money in their hands. That is money with which they buy power, right? So they're just going to double down on that. But they talk about increasing taxes, but because those taxes fall on the productive, because they fall on the wealthy, they either don't do it at the last minute, they give up and don't raise taxes at the last minute, or they ruin the economy so taxes go down anyway. This is what we've got. We've got a corrupt governing class that is bought off with this money, that doesn't want to let go of this money. This has been predicted since America was founded. Now people can vote to take your money for themselves, so they will, right? So now we've got this system where the GOP comes in and cuts taxes, but the debt goes up because they don't cut the welfare programs. And the Democrats come in and they increase the welfare programs, and they either destroy the economy by taxing the wealthier middle class, or they just dump the tax increases and they leave us with all this debt. Follow the money. Every time you hear racism, every time you hear some kind of social issue, transgenderism, whatever they're talking about, follow the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the corruption. It's all about the power. And this is why I say it's not a question of left and right. It's a question of the problem we have, which is this. This is the problem we have, and how to solve it, which is to take the power away from these people to do what they're doing, to get their hands on our dough, okay? Because it ain't about racism. This country is great about racism. We will get along fine if they would just leave us alone, but they have gotten dirty. If you like this video, give it a like. If you didn't like this video, lie. Give it a like and subscribe, and you will get more great content like this.